Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 7 p.m. and time to begin our Planning Commission for this month. We will begin our Planning Commission, as always, by the invocation led by Commissioner Baker, followed by the flag salute led by Commissioner Gerber. Please stand.
Let us pray. Lord, we ask for divine wisdom and guidance as we deliberate the affairs of the city of Yukon for the people of Yukon. We also ask that you protect our soldiers and sailors overseas and the many people who are working and not getting paid and just trying to get by day to day. Ask for your hand on them and reassure them that this too shall pass. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Chairman Taylor,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Baker,
Here.
Commissioner Gerba,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Item 1 is the approval of the minutes of December the 10th, 2018. Do we have any corrections or additions, or do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve as posted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerba,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Chairman Taylor.
Yes. Item 2 is the visitor section. If there's anyone that'd like to address the council about a non-agended item, now would be the time to do so. Seeing none, we will proceed. Before we begin tonight on our agenda, it's fairly lengthy, is we've instituted it came down from the council, a different item that if you wish to speak on any certain item, you need to sign in and give it to Kathy, which in turn will hand it to me, and I'll call your name. They're in no particular order. And we'd like for you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. We'll try to have a 30-second warning. So get your thoughts together on what you want to tell us. And that way, hopefully, we won't have repeated scenarios each time someone would like to come up. We want you to have your say if you would like to speak. But all we're asking is that you have your thoughts together and that we can keep it to the point. Item 3 is to hear a request by Dick Swift for a revision lot split on Lot 21 and the east 15 feet of Lot 22 and Block 90 of the Spencer addition to the town of Yukon, also known as 823 Oak, and formerly the west 10 feet of Lot 22 and all of Lots 23 and 24, Block 90, Spencer addition to the town of Yukon, which is also known as 825. Mr. Swift, you know, come tell us, state your name and address and tell us what this is all about. Up to the microphone, please. Right there. Yeah.
My name is Dick Swift. I live at 8302 Holly, and I own the 2 lots, which are 60-40 splits. I just need to get those replaced so that they're 50-50 splits.
So you own the 2 houses that they're on?
There's no houses.
There's no houses?
2 vacant lots now.
2 vacant lots. And you're wanting to make 2 equal
Yes.
equal lots?
Just go back to where it was when it's first platted.
Okay, does any of the commissioners have questions for Dick? Staff has no problems with this?
No, sir. We have no problems with this request.
Okay. Do we have someone like to read the proposal?
I good. In the case of the application for lot split for 823 at 825 Oak Avenue submitted by Dick Swift, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with staff findings. I move that this item be approved with the variance to the minimum lot width and overall lot size requirements, with the understanding that the existing lot disparities will be addressed through the 2019 Comprehensive Plan, Zoning Code, and Subdivision Regulation updates.
Do I have a second? Second. A motion and a second to grant the reverse lot split. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, Kathy.
Chairman Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerba?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
There, you got it, Dick.
Great. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Item 4 is to hear a request by Mark Grubbs of Grubbs Construction LLC on behalf of U Storage OK LLC for a final plat of the Yukon Crossing Phase 2 Commercial located at 801 East Main.
Good evening. My name is Barry Lodge with Grubbs Consulting, representing the applicant on this project. And this is, I believe, the third final plat of a previously approved preliminary plat of Yukon Crossing Phase 2. The residential portion has been approved and the storage portion has been approved. This will be the commercial tract that it's over on the east side of that property. Couple of comments in the staff report. One was basically a spelling error on the plat that we have no objection correcting that. And then we had some discussions about the driveway spacing, and in talking with Mitchell before the meeting and with Cindy, the planner, that item was going to be eliminated from the comments, and then the driveway space can be addressed at the building permit stage.
Is this something that should have been done prior to this meeting?
No, sir, it was kind of a misunderstanding and we've worked it out. If there's an issue that needs to come back to the planning commission for clarification, we'll bring it back like we normally do our driveway spacings. I'll
But-
come back to you if there's an issue.
But not the number of driveways.
Not the number of driveways. And we already got Main Street or 66 taken
Right.
care of. Those have limits of no access. So this is on the street that will be going off of 66 into the residential subdivision.
Right.
So we'll just do that at staff approval, and if there's an issue, then we'll bring it back like always.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from committee members?
These are going to be restaurant lots, or what's the plan for there?
I don't think they've got it nailed down for sure at this point. It could be various. I think they've looked at hardware store possibility, and then some possibilities of restaurants. And
Chicken plates.
it could be it could be a lot.
So how far does the gate back on this drawing? Is the gate shown on here and I just, I'm not seeing it?
The gate is not shown here, but it's actually at the end of this plat.
It's all the way back to the end? Okay.
Yes.
But before the first residential lot?
Yes,
Okay.
that was shown on the construction plans.
Okay.
Anything else, Commissioner Baker?
Just the gate now.
Okay. If there's no further questions or comments, would someone, anything in the audience, anybody wants to say anything about this? Okay, would someone care to read the draft motion?
Yeah, I'll do it.
In the case of the application for a final plat for Grubbs Consulting LLC on behalf of Sun Properties LLC, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff recommendations cited in the staff report. I move that this item be recommended for approval to the City Council with the following conditions. Number 1, the maximum number of drives along Yukon Crossing Avenue shall be,
Mr. Chairman, this is the item that was taken care of.
This part was taken
So
care of.
strike.
Strike that.
Yes.
correction strike number 1. Number 2, the spelling of the county treasurer's seal shall be corrected. Spelled Treasurer apostrophe S instead of the incorrect spelling.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the final plat. Any comments or from the audience? Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Chairman Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerba?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Item 5, to hear a request by Craft and Toll on behalf of Rick Opitz for rezoning from agricultural district to C5 automotive and commercial recreational district. This is part of the northwest quarter of Section 30, Township 12 North, Range 5 West of the Indian Meridian, Canadian County. And this is on the south side of I-40. There's a 5-acre tract in there. Is Mr. Opitz here? I thought I saw him. Rick, would you come to tell us about this little piece of ground?
Rick Opitz, 1777 West Abandonment, Yukon, Oklahoma. Yes, and it's about a 10-acre tract, 11-acre tract on the south side of I-40. Excuse me. And all around it is C5 already, which is the Catholic Church and Archdiocese property. And I've had this property for a while, and we just thought it was time to go ahead and switch it over to C5.
Okay.
What's on it now?
There's a house on it, and there's 2 barns, and actually a gravel lot is what's on it.
Is it vacant now?
No, there's somebody there now doing business.
And you've notified them that, well, they won't have to leave under this zoning.
No, they'll be grandfathered in under this zoning anyway.
Right. Any other questions from council?
So the little triangle there will be the on-ramp or access.
Part of that would be taken for the off ramp and on ramp, that's correct. But the triangle piece is not his.
Right, that's just.
Anything else? Someone care to read the draft motion? I'll read it then. In the case of the rezoning application by Craft and Toll on behalf of Opitz Incorporated, we've read the staff report and received testimony at public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings in the report. I move that this be recommended for approval to the city council. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this rezoning. Any comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? What, ma'am? Wait, just a moment.
I can't hear you.
You need to come to the microphone. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you need to make sure if she's on the north side or south side of I-40.
You understand this is on the south side of I-40, not on the north side?
Correct.
Okay. State your name and your address, please.
Linda Williams Murphy, 2601 Lost Lake Lane, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099.
Thank you.
Okay. So right now, the Catholic Church owns the adjacent property east and south.
Address us, ma'am. Yes,
Oh.
that's correct.
Okay. And so that is the only C5. There isn't any west of the property at this time, I don't think, or southwest of the property. So that's, his property would be the first along there. And I don't know exactly where the Catholic property ends. But the description on this is commercial recreation.
Yes, ma'am.
And
C5, that covers,
okay, so that's just the title under that classification.
that's correct.
And he has stated today that he has no immediate plans for the property, but it's already being used commercially. When I drove by there previously, we've got porta potties and semi-trailers on there. Is that within C5?
Yes. It's in agricultural zoning right now.
Correct.
And that's allowed in agricultural zoning. And he'd like to change it to C5.
Okay.
So it would be in conformity with the rest of the ground. When they get ready to sell it, they'll be under one zoning when they get ready to develop it.
Okay. All right. And the triangle piece adjoins his property, but is owned by someone else? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So there's nothing that Craft and Toll is going to present on this matter, on the agenda? Okay. All right, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor, is that correct? Or
That's correct.
Yes. Any further discussion? Call the roll, Kathy.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerba?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Chairman Taylor?
Yes. We will, it means we, in case y'all didn't understand what I said at the beginning, we're a recommendation body. We recommend to the city council. They may follow our recommendation. They may turn down our recommendation, or they may modify our recommendation. They have the final say on rezoning. We do not. So we are recommending to the council that they rezone that property from agricultural to C5. Now we're coming north of I-40 for the next item here. And that would be to hear a request by Craft and Toll on behalf of ODB Investors LLC and Opitz Incorporated for a rezoning from R1 Single Family Residential District to a C3 Residential Commercial District. We had some folks that filled out and would like to speak to us about this. First of all, let's get someone from Craft and Toll come up and tell us about this.
Good evening. Phil Hagan with Craft and Toll and Associates, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, Yukon, Oklahoma. So the first track we're going to be discussing is the northernmost track, which is just west of the entrance into Frisco Ridge, which previously, when this was before you several months ago, was the proposal was for C5. Between Planning Commission and City Council, we dropped the zoning on this to C3. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, or we can let the...
Is it, as it appears on the drawing, the plat line will be pretty much exactly where the trees begin?
Down in that area, there aren't a lot of trees. That's correct, where the trees begin.
Right there.
That's correct.
Any other questions of this gentleman? Does Larry Whitman want to speak to this item? Is this the correct item you want to speak to? Okay, we'll get back to you. Who would like to speak to this item that's filled out one of these sheets? Okay, come up, please. And your name?
I'm Linda Chudzinski. I live at 1821 Hobo in Frisco Ridge. I'm the previous chair of the committee who built our playground in Frisco Ridge. And this property is going in directly across from our playground and from our soccer field. One of our premier concerns in Frisco Ridge is the safety of our children. We're concerned about traffic hazards, and when I was chair of the playground committee, we talked extensively about where the playground should be safely located. We were concerned not only about traffic, but also about, since we are on 66, about children, the potential for children to be snatched, and there's been a lot of that in the news lately. So there is no buffer here between this commercial zone and our soccer field and our children's playground. That's a concern, and I wanted to express that, strongly express that. That's a great concern in Frisco Ridge. We are having an HOA meeting next Tuesday, and I don't know if you can postpone a decision until we might discuss some solutions to that, or what you can do. but I would strongly ask you, because I'm sure you all have children and grandchildren that are of concern to you, and I would ask you to keep those children in mind when you make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I might say that any commercial property that goes against residential property, the commercial has to keep a fence up and are required to keep it in repair. Now, who else wanted to speak to this? Yes, sir. You are?
David Bowser.
Okay.
And I have a handout for
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Give us his address and get in the minutes.
Okay. For this guy, this gentleman? Okay, just a moment. Sir, will you speak your name and address, please?
Mr. Chairman, he needs to provide staff with a copy of what he's handed out to. Yes.
Who else needs one?
You provide one to the city attorney.
David Bowser, 413 Swingman Road. And I want to be as concise as I could, so I typed it up, and I also gave you an attached drawing, which goes along with the write-up that I gave you. And for instance, on the write-up that I gave you, there's a 1 and a 2 that also goes to the drawing at the locations of 1 and 2. And likewise A, B, and C. So they're listed on the drawing from the front. Again, I want to reiterate what Ms. Chudinsky said, that there's been major concern in the subdivision about child safety. In fact, the subdivision voted down to have a soccer field by Route 66 because of child safety. But the developers were able to put it in because that was legally for them to do so. So they put it in anyway. So there is a legitimate concern for child safety. So the first thing on my write-up is number 1. There's currently a turnoff to the right going into the subdivision, which would be used for this C3 area. And my concern is that could there be another entrance for this C3 area off of Highway 66 so that you wouldn't bring all this extra traffic into the subdivision, which could be some unknown perpetrators. So that's a request. That's number 1. Can we put another entrance off of Highway 66 and not have the entrance into C3 from the Frisco Ridge Drive in the subdivision? Okay, number 2, the attached drawing shows a number 2 where the drawing from C3, there's actually a C5 area that goes down right next to the current retention pond, which is right across from the playground. My proposal is to, instead of have that dip back down to the retention pond, to continue that western boundary straight south to the tree line, and that would provide more of a buffer area so that C5 is not right down across from the playground. Okay, that's point number 2.
30 seconds.
I'm sorry, I can't. You want me to come back and talk later?
Well,
Because I have to talk about these 3 other points.
we can read them. You can highlight them in your last little bit here if you'd like.
Okay. Water retention and drainage. According to the previous development that's happened in the subdivision, we are still having drainage problems. And there are 3 items listed there. There's phase 2, and now currently being developed is phase 3. And phase 3 is putting in another new street And on a previously posted drawing, which was put out by the highway, there was another retention pond in that drawing for phase 3. It's not listed in this drawing here. So there's currently no way to take care of the extra water that's going to come from phase 3 in this drawing.
But we're not addressing phase 3.
We're addressing C3
See?
and C5, which are in the area where there's going to be a water problem.
The
So the-
engineers, city engineers and the engineers for the developer will need to take those items in mind and not allow more water if they can.
But you can see why I'm asking, because on a previous drawing it was shown there. There was another pond shown there, and now there's none shown there.
What do we do about that, Mitchell, is,
Mr. Chairman, we'll probably have the engineer of record go ahead and speak to that question here in a minute after he's done talking, if you'd
okay.
like.
All right, sir, do we have an engineer here with you on that? Can he speak to that, please? All right,
And-
can we get that answer? One, go ahead.
Okay, one more quick point is that under phase 2, which was previously developed and the water's coming down in that same area, the present pond is full of silted soil, so the retention pond is not doing what it's supposed to be. So that's a concern. And there's also a gully being washed out by the current retention pond. So again, that's a concern of engineering concern to the subdivision because it's being washed out.
All right,
So
Thank
these
you,
are
sir.
listed in the drawing.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
Come address that, please.
Well, I have no knowledge of what pond he's talking about that the highway department showed him, but I can tell you what our plans are, just high level, and what's already in place. So we have already built a detention pond here, here, and here, all of which is upstream of the point of concern. So we are catching the water well upstream, controlling it, and releasing it at a controlled rate. And we're working closely with the city on this because the city's been working on abandonment, and we've been working closely with Robbie, city engineer, on the design of all this.
Now, all these houses are going to be built in here. Are you involved in that at all? The new streets and things that will be
Correct,
cut
yes,
in?
I'm the engineer of record.
So what are you doing about the water that will be when they develop those R1 housing up in there?
This pond right here is designed to handle all that runoff. We designed it back when we did phase 2, and it was designed for phase 2 and phase 3. And these ponds, which are upstream of that, will only help and reduce the amount of drainage going to that point. These are designed for full commercial build-out of the property to the south.
So the first time you came here, you had requested for C5, and now you've downzoned that request to C3.
Correct. After meeting with some of the representatives of the neighborhood, there was an agreement to downzone it to C3 for that corner.
So C3 would be like office buildings.
Mitch will be a little more familiar with that. I mean, it takes out the hotels, it takes out some of the heavier uses.
Yeah, it'd be general zoning or general use zoning,
It's more like a neighborhood commercial.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyone else that has signed in that hasn't talked yet? You've signed in? Yes. Okay. What's your name, sir?
Justin Christie, 309 Swingman Court, Yukon, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I would just like to go over a few things that I've noticed regarding the other residential properties south of this area. They all seem to have about at least 100-foot landscape buffer between their
Now,
properties.
are we going to talk about this C3 zoning? That's what we're talking about now.
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
calling reference that it seems like there's a bit of an inequity that they each get at least 100 feet of a landscape buffer when we have none up here. And I think it would be a few reasons to at least work out some distance of a buffer off of the property line of the homeowners association and this proposed C3. With what you said earlier about having a fence maintained on the property line, that fence would be almost on our current sidewalk. So I'm not sure that would,
Well, they would make it work because that's one of the Yukon requirements for businesses that adjoin. And there's a lot of places where a business adjoins R1 housing, and they have to keep the fences up. Correct, Mitchell?
Typically, that's when residential abuts commercial, and that's typically houses when they abut or adjoin commercial. And if they butt along a street, then there's some landscaping requirements and for parking and stuff.
Okay.
so to just clarify the request, and the request would be to simply collaborate with hopefully the ODB investors, the current owners, to see if there's something we could work out for some land that would allow the entrance to be on the left side, or driving in from the south, there's landscape and trees, and then on the right side there would be a fence, or hopefully not, but I think it would be beneficial to both of us to make the entrance look as good as possible. In addition, there are some behind the sign, I believe the property line is right behind our Frisco Ridge neighborhood sign, and there's a lot of plumbing behind that sign that I'm not sure it's accounted for. So at some point we might want to try to think of a way to not build like right there, because there's a lot of, which we had nothing to do with. It was done in 2006, so we're just kind of here dealing with it. I'm with the homeowners association, and I handle the commons, and there's seems to be always issues back there. So just along the property line between our two properties, I think it would be nice to have at some point just figure out something we could do to accommodate both our needs there.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your comments, sir. Anyone else on this item that's signed in? Okay.
Hi. My name's Ashley Sanderson. I live at 616 Signalman. I'm going to be really super brief because they've hit most of the highlights. My biggest concern as a mom is just the safety. And the only thing I wanted to mention was in terms of the cutout that is directly adjacent to our park. I play there a lot with my 8-year-old. And I have physically seen with my own eyes multiple children nearly being hit as they head back towards their vehicles that are parked there, or what have you, on their way home from the park, things like that. So I just want you to know the threat there for children getting seriously injured or killed is real. And so I would like to see a separate entrance from our neighborhood. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you all for your comments. Do we have any other questions or comments from the council?
I have a question for the engineer. There was some discussion about that existing retention pond being silted in.
Correct.
Is it silted in?
I'm not aware of that, but the fact that it's silted in does not change the capacity of the storage of the pond. It's just an aesthetics. I mean, from the normal water surface, if it's a wet bottom pond, the storage is from where the outlet is above that. It's not below that. The water, anything below the water level is not counted as storage. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's all the storage is from where the water is above, so it can build up. What's happening underwater does not affect the storage. It may be an aesthetic issue, but it does not affect the engineering and the
If it fills in, it's a problem.
if it fills in, it still will function as a detention pond.
I have a related question if you're done. As far as capacity is concerned, they talk about 100-year floods,
Correct.
500-year floods, things like that. What is your baseline? What do you use as this is good enough for areas like this? Is there a specific, I'm assuming specific CFM, but what does that equate to in layman's terms as far as a storm with a certain amount of inches per hour or something? Is there anything that you could explain this better?
I really can't. It varies on the size of the basin, where you are, the time of concentration. There's so many variables. But to get back to where the outlet of the pond is, unless there's a drought or something and the water's below that, from that point up. That's why we have a berm around it. That is the functional storage of the pond. So if silt has gotten in there below the water, and it was 6 foot deep, and now it's only 4 foot deep, that does not change the functionality of the pond at all.
I've got a question relating to that. If silt is taking the place of where water normally is, that means more water is going to travel downstream. I've heard a lot of testimony from citizens out here that says there's some serious issues with water in this area. And it just seems like we keep kind of kicking the can down the road, and some of these problems, as we do more development, specifically in these areas, it's going to get worse unless we mitigate these issues now, not later when it becomes an issue.
Well, Mr. Chairman, for Robbie, the city engineer, has been working with them with the abandonment roadway at Frisco. They've been addressing the water issues. That's why they've increased the pond sizes upstream. So they're looking at that as they're developing, as well as any future development. It would be looked at very closely, because we know we need to address any drainage issues throughout the whole town. So it's been very serious.
So to go back to your question, as far as if silt goes in there, if the bottom silt's up 2 feet, that does not mean more water is going to go downstream at all. I could draw you a diagram and show you. It's
I just
really,
don't understand that, but that's...
It's from the outlet structure, which sets the normal water surface elevation, up is the effective storage. Anything below that does not provide storage because it's full of water already. So it can't provide storage, it's already full. I don't know how to put that in other terms.
Well, that's what I was asking about, the new cement and the extra houses that...
Correct. We've already accounted for that in this pond. It's already been accounted for phase 2 and 3 when we built this pond.
I'm Kip Ryan. I'm with the developer Raptor ODB Investments. Think of it as a detention pond. Retention is there for aesthetics. Everything is designed from a base point as though it's a detention pond. And we've been told about the silt. We've looked at it. We have not seen considerable amount of silt. But we are more than willing, once the second phase is done and we stop having dirt runoff and we start having hard surface runoff, to look at the silt issue and maybe do some things about that. But right now, the statement I've made to the homeowners association in the past is, until it's designed with the actual hard pan water from the roads coming off with this clean water, we're just going to be pulling out silt and adding more silt. So the third phase actually improves the capacity or the working of the water going in, because where that third phase is, we're collecting dirt from that point on down to the pond. And so this third phase removes that dirt, puts a hard surface road in there, and so we have clean water going to the pond instead of dirt water.
What percentage of phase 3 would you say is done?
Phase 3 has just been graded, about 80% graded. So at this point, with the rain, we're still collecting dirt. Now we've done different things. We put a bunch of temporary rock structures up on that drainage way in the dirt to try to at least eliminate some of that silt that's coming in. But the actual phase 3 actually will improve the silting issue. And we will address, there's a fountain that's not working that we have removed it, we will replace, but with all the construction debris that would be going in the pond, that was what destroyed the fountain. And so we're not going to put a new fountain in to destroy in another 3 months. We'd like to have phase 3 done. We're putting clean water in the pond. We can have a better control fountain. And then we can address, have somebody actually look at, the engineers at the silting issue and see what we need to address there. Because we don't want the pond filling up. It's there for a reason. It's there to look good. But it is a retention pond designed to detain. So that's, you know, if it wasn't wet, that top of the pond would be a solid surface the way it's designed. And it would just detain. It wouldn't retain.
That's,
does that make sense?
I'm going to leave it to city engineers. They've looked at the bottom of it, but I've been around long enough and worked with water and sewer and everything that you can't tell me that silt filling the detention pond doesn't reduce the capacity of that detention pond.
That's not my statement. That's his as an engineer. I'm just saying that as an engineer, that's designed from the surface level up, just like it was hard soil. That's my understanding. Is that correct? But once we get the third phase in, which is going in right now, we're going to have the control of clean water coming down roads and storm sewer. That third phase is where we're collecting the dirt from. And that's what was going to the pond as a silt standpoint. we weren't pulling that off of phase 2 that's completed. And so the road's gonna go all the way down where there's dirt now, and it'll have a cement flume down to the pond rather than collecting all the water from that phase 2 road and going right down a dirt path to the pond.
So during the building time, when these houses are going up, you're gonna have the contractors try to keep their mud.
Well, there's controls, and each individual builder has to follow the DEQ standards of silt fence. Do we have can I see the diagram you have, Phil, right here? So what's happening is this road right here is not in, and we collect all the water off this road. It goes down that dirt that's just filled right now. And so that's where the silt's coming from, is you got one of the longest roads in there that's straight downhill collecting water in a valley there that's going to be a road. Now, we have done things as a developer. We've added a lot of rock structures in there to try to slow that down, and I think we've improved the challenge with the silt, but that happened at the initial stages of the development. You guys have this diagram up there?
Yes.
Okay. So when that road goes in, we're actually going to be storming and collecting clean water and run it off in the pond instead of having the opportunity for it to run over that field and pick up the dirt.
Oh, you got that upside down. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's, we've been aware of some of the issues with the pond. We don't want to make any improvements to it until phase 3's done. Once we know we got clean water coming in, we will go in and look at the silt issue.
Dredge it.
We'll do what we have to do. We will address the fountain issue, and then any sort of riprap that needs to be added at that point, we'll be happy to do.
Who owns the land, the northwest corner of that detention pond? Is that HOA property?
The northwest corner of that
Between C3 and the pond?
just right here?
No.
No, right there.
Right between,
Right there.
right there.
That's part of the common area.
Okay.
Yeah. That goes with the detention pond.
That was the C5 the gentleman was talking about there.
Yeah, so we were talking about buffers, and we've got a pretty sizable buffer here. And what we've tried to be real aware of, I mean, you got 100 feet here, and you're almost 200 feet to the nearest house from C3. Now, I know we're not to their property, but as far as the buffer from houses, anything here is as large as anything we've got anywhere else on the property.
Okay.
I just want to get clarification. I know that silt issue's been discussed, and I've had probably 3 or 4 different, those HOAs turnover. I have different chairmen I've talked to, and we've not addressed them. We've said, hey, there is a problem, but let us get control to where we're draining clean water into the pond, and then we can address those issues.
All right.
And so phase 3 takes care of it.
Thank you, sir. Further? Have you spoke? You spoke, sir. Yeah. I'm sorry. If I let you do it, I have to let everybody do it. Anything else? Well, you can rebut with him when the meeting's over, okay? Any other questions or comments? May I have a draft motion read, please?
I'll take it.
Okay.
In the case of the rezoning application by OBD Investors LLC, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings cited in the staff report. I move that this item be recommended for approval to the City Council with the following additional conditions. Number 1, renumber the blocks on the accompanied exhibit to Block 1 and Block 2. Additionally, prominently note the various tracts in bold lettering.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further comments? Call the roll, Kathy.
Chairman Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerba?
No.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
So that item will be recommended with a 4-to-1 vote to the City Council. Item 8. 7.
7.
Item 7. I'm trying to get finished in a hurry. Thunder game's on. To hear a request by Crafton Tull on behalf of OBD Investors, Inc. and Opens, Inc. for a rezone from R2, Combined Residential District, R3, Multifamily Residential District, and C3 restricted commercial district to a C3 restricted commercial district, all rolled into one. And this is a tract of land situated within a portion of the southwest quarter of Section 19, Township 12 North, Range 5 West of the Indian Meridian, Canadian County. And then it has all the meets and bounds, and this contains 13.72 acres, more or less. Yes, sir.
Chairman, again, Phil Hagan with Crafton Toll and Associates. So the track we're discussing now, and I'll show the audience, is the C3 that is along the neighboring addition. At the previous planning commission,
Go ahead.
that was C5, and we were proposing a 25-foot landscape buffer. Since then, we've increased the landscape buffer to 100 feet and have agreed to rezone 350 foot of that to C3 versus C5. And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
So, as I understand it, they've also addressed the drainage for that addition.
There's been discussion with the city on providing drainage improvements at that, the corner, that stub street, I don't know the name of it.
Is it, would it take care of Villa?
Well, Mr. Chairman? Yeah.
Kings, currently there's a drainage issue there, and, we have not done any development within this basin, so, but we are gonna work with the city to put a detention pond in that corner to slow the water down, and then the city is gonna work with us extending the storm sewer to that detention pond. So
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is an item that's in your packet. City Council approved the other night the contract to install the storm drain as shown on this drawing to help start the first phase of the stormwater issues, addressing them. So the contractor is supposed to stage Monday and start Tuesday with weather permitting. No other issues, but they're under contract to go ahead and install what's shown in red. So if you have other questions, we can answer, but they have been working with the design engineer on the sizing as well. That would feed a future detention pond at some future date.
So the trigger for the future detention pond, what would that be?
When there's
any
it
development,
starts being
development in that drainage area that runs.
any
that
activity at all in that drainage basin.
Right, that's correct.
We'll put in a regional detention pond in that corner. There's discussion now about going ahead and doing some preliminary berming and a culvert to release the water at a slower rate than what they're seeing right now. Again, that's an existing condition that was existed prior to my client buying the property.
Okay. I know we have folks that want to speak to this C3 zoning. Raise your hand if you want to speak to this. Amy, I know you, so you may come up first.
Good evening. I'm Amy Walters. I live at 704 Villa Avenue. I've lived in my home for 24 years and have seen lots of water run. I have actually 3 different questions, things that I'd like to address. The first one, looking at the buffer that's behind my home, in dark green it says 25 feet, and then it extends to 100 feet. So that can be read 25 feet of dark green, 100 feet of light green to equal a total of 125, or it could be read 100 feet. So I think you may want to clarify exactly, you had said 100, but maybe change some of the coloring on that, just because it's not clear. I would like the 125, but I know that's dollars and cents. Along Villa Avenue, those homes have been there for well over 20 years. There will be, I guess, 100 feet of landscape buffer. The area to the north, which is Frisco Ridge, they have 165, and I'm just kind of thinking, we have existing homes right there where people are living. The 165, and I know it may not seem like much, but for those of us that live there, it means a lot to us. So that is something that I would like to address, just some disparity. I've been vocal about this, and anyway, I just feel like there's a disparity between Frisco and Westport. The size of the ponds, I cannot begin to stress the amount of water that comes out of that field. The street will be dry. The storms are gone for days. There is still water coming out of that. There's a little waterfall and it just streams on and on and on. I think as far as building a pond, it seems like there would be a study. How many acres are we expecting to have under asphalt and concrete and rooftop and whatnot? What is the runoff per acre that we're going to have? When we have rains, how much do we get per hour? Work a little bit of math with this. How many gallons per acre? Building a pond that would correlate with that. And I would think you'd expect a retention pond to probably already be 50% full at any given time. But I'm just speaking the amount of water, none of you can fathom how much water comes out of that. So we've got video, but again, I can't stress. So in the event that the retention pond is built, what recourse, if we have flooding, what recourse do residents have? Because city engineers have always said, and every time I see anybody out there, I'll ask, what's going to happen? They promise you will never have more water than what you have now. When you have, and that's the answer I get. And I think when you have concrete, when you've got rooftops, when you've got cement, what we're going to do, and I appreciate, and I'm aware as I've noticed the last couple days, the markings with what the city is doing, but the issue going down right now, the current drains that we have, they are handling that, but it's the water that comes out to get it out. Again, it would astound you how much water comes out of that field, because there is so much, and it all drains, starting from, I would say where Vandament used to be, but all of that comes straight down to that little corner, and it is huge.
30
So
seconds.
I guess what recourse we are going to have should we, in the event that we have flooding, who's going to claim responsibility for it if we have it? So I would like to see some research based as far as before we just build a pond, do a little homework before we just start digging a hole. Thank you.
Amy, as far as I was told the other night, I attended a planning meeting at the council concerning this, and the size of the ponds will depend on what goes in, and they will do their engineering at that time. They don't even know what's going to go in, and so they can't tell you how much asphalt and so forth that's going to be there because they haven't sold the land.
Okay.
So, but as I understand it, as they develop this piece of property, the engineer will take in consideration what is going to go in and try to build other detention ponds, not just this,
Okay.
that will help with the water there. And the city took your comments and the others from the last time. These folks downzoned it from C5 to C3.
Right, right.
And then the city has actually heard your pleas, and they're starting to try to get drainage in there
Okay.
for you.
Okay, because again, we're going to be left here. This is what we have. This is our home.
Right.
Developers are going to be gone. This is our home.
Right.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this item? Yes, sir.
It's Dave Brabeck, 732 Chateau Avenue, actually one street over from Amy, east. One of the main concerns I have about that on the proposed C3, so again, I live on Chateau Avenue. In the Westport West Edition, there's one way in and one way out. We like it that way for security. And there are 3 streets, according to the map, that could be extended to go into that area. I don't see anything addressed on that. Is there anything in the plan? Does that happen down the road? Kingsgate Terrace, I had, that's the one furthest to the north. There's one in the middle. I had to look at an old map. They call it Winfield Drive, but it's not listed on there. And then there's obviously Churchill. And again, my concern is so none of those become a thoroughfare to get into the new C3 or the C5 over there, or will all that come in from abandonment?
Mr. Chairman, on that answer, if it's commercially developed, we will not allow interconnection with them. If it was residentially developed, then there would be connection. But right now, as it's being proposed, with the commercial zoning, there's no intent ever to connect those streets to the commercial.
Okay. All right. That's it, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Others would like to discuss this item? Okay?
Which item is it, 7?
Larry Wedman, 721 Villa. The engineer has partially answered my question, or part of my question, regarding what the future retention pond might be there at the end of Kingsgate Terrace. What is the difference in a detention pond buffer and a detention pond? Could somebody answer me that, please?
I can't. I'll be honest. Go ahead.
Yeah, that I can answer 2 questions that were asked. The detention pond buffer is a landscape buffer which will have a detention pond and it'll be landscaped around it, but it's going to be 160. It is actually there right now, 165 foot wide, and we needed it to be that wide to provide enough detention, and so that's why that's 165, and we're proposing 100 on the east. So it's 165, which will include the detention pond and a landscaped buffer, edge around the pond.
Okay.
So that buffer just contains a detention pond.
I think the only other question I had is we're looking at the area, the acreage just to the west of this proposed C3 zoning states proposed C5 zoning, but up there to the northwest it says C5 zoning, but that hasn't been it's not C5 zoning, actually it's proposed. Is that correct?
No.
No, it's been passed.
It has been passed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Someone care to read the draft motion on this?
All right. In the case of rezoning application by ODB Investors LLC, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings cited in the staff report. I move this item be recommended for approval to the City Council. Condition 1, renumber the blocks on the according exhibit, Block 1 and Block 2. Additionally, prominently note the various tracks in bold lettering.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve, recommending to the City Council approval of this item. Any further discussion? Call the roll, Kathy.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerba?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Chairman Taylor?
Yes. Thank you, folks, for your comments on that item. Item 8 is to request to hear a request by Crafton Toll on behalf of OBD Investors, LLC, and Opitz, Inc. for a rezone from R2, Combined Residential District, R3, Multifamily Residential District, C3, Restricted Commercial District, I1, Light Industrial District, to a C5 Automotive and Commercial Recreational District. And this is a tract of land situated on a portion of the southwest quarter of Section 19, Township 12 North, Range 5 West of the Indian Meridian, Canadian County. And then we have our meets and bounds, and it is said tract contains 1,571,691 square feet, or 36.081 acres, more or less.
Again, Chairman Phil Hagan with Crafton Toll and Associates. So the track we're discussing now is the large tract of C3 just to the west of C5, excuse me, to the west of C3.
You don't have this sold, or you're just getting it rezoned and
Correct.
ready to sell?
Anticipation of the interchange, yes.
Okay, yes, there will be the interchange. Okay, questions of this gentleman? Anybody in the audience have questions on this gentleman, on this item?
Who owns the property southwest?
Please, ma'am, please. You may step up to the microphone, state your name.
I feel like a speaker, I'm not really that, but I just wanted to know on this track, who owns the property southwest along the new road?
Could you restate your name and
Yes.
address,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. Linda Murphy, 2601 Lost Lake Lane, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Opitz, is that your property? Now, wait a minute, let's talk to us, so you come over to the microphone. And point out to her.
Yes, Rick Opitz, 1777 West Vanderbilt, Yukon. This is, will be right away for the interchange. This is ODOT land, is what it'll
Oh,
be.
all of this is ODOT?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, we're preparing this ground for the new on and off Frisco Road interchange. It'll be an on and off on both sides, and it should be a real boon to that side of Yukon.
So, Mr. Chair, we will lose, there will be no remaining R2 or R3?
That is correct. Anything that's billable has been done away with this once it's approved by city council. So all the R2, R3, I1, it will go away.
Okay, would someone care to read this item?
Yeah, I'll take it. In the case of the rezoning application by OBD Investors LLC, we have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. We find ourselves in agreement with the staff findings cited in the staff report. I move that this item be recommended for approval to the city council with the following conditions. Number 1, renumber the blocks on the accompanying exhibit to block 1 and block 2. Additionally, prominently note the various tracks in bold lettering.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of this. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, Kathy.
Commissioner Baker,
No.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerba,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, our last meeting, very contentious, went a long time, but your comments caused the city to make a lot of changes, and the landowners also gave in and compromised a lot of things on here. I think it showed that these meetings and the city council meeting does have meaning, and hopefully that these folks, as we prepare for this ground and these changes, that they are made as these gentlemen have said they would be made. And I appreciate everybody's respectfulness and willing to cooperate with our time limit, and everybody got a chance to talk. Any new business, Mitchell?
No new business tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Open discussion. I'd like to formally welcome Mr. Carson Wright as one of our commissioners. He got a baptism of fire tonight, and I told him this was tame compared to our first meeting. But I'm glad to have you. Anybody else have anything on their mind?
I've got something. I just didn't want to reiterate thanks for everybody coming out. You know, there might be some issues that we sitting up here aren't aware of because we don't live in your neighborhoods. I appreciate everybody coming out and trying to make us a little bit smarter because we try to make the most informed decision that we can up here, and we can't do it without your input, so I appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh, and Amy, as far as not knowing about the drainage, every time it sprinkles in your neighborhood, my phone rings. So trust me, I am acutely aware of the drainage in your neighborhood.
Anything else? It's actually just for us up here. We've finished with our business, sir. And my last thing is to state that the next meeting will be February 11th. This meeting's adjourned.